This is Jack Fishman behind the camera speaking with music director Sebastian Langlessing about the Symphony's Beethoven Festival in January and February 2012. Sebastian, you're doing all 9 symphonies. Why a Beethoven Festival?
Good question, but I think it's in our process of these festivals. We started with the Tchaikovsky. I think a wonderful thing to continue. First of all, in all the repertoire, the Beethoven symphonies always actually are the most challenging pieces, and I think in building a relationship with an orchestra and an orchestra with its audience, this is really the way to strengthen a relationship and to develop a style together. Because every orchestra, I think, has to define its style, how they play Beethoven, and from there, everything else you play in the repertoire is really influenced. And so it's a very, very important thing to do. And I think it is, again, a wonderful way of presenting pieces we know and we appreciate a lot and we hear a lot in the repertoire, and other pieces that we don't hear that often, like the symphonies number 1, 2, 4, and 8, for example. Again, like in Tchaikovsky, 50% of the repertoire is actually not so mainstream.
Now, in the last concert of the 10-11 season, you did the Beethoven Violin Concerto with Vadim Gluzman, and in the web blog Incident Light, Mike Greenberg said that the dynamics were particularly startling, but then he said, but they were startling because they're Beethoven's, and most orchestras don't play Beethoven's dynamics. What's so special about it? Was a compliment. So, what's so special about Beethoven's dynamics?
Well, Beethoven has some very important ways he writes them, and that define him really from other composers, how he writes dynamics. First of all, his use of sforzato, which is the strong accents, and they come in lots of different shapes. Some are expressive, some are with a very hard and clear attack, which is actually the most difficult to execute, especially when you have to redo them, and that's very Beethoven. That is sforzato follows the next one. They have to be the exact same strength execution as the first one, if not stronger. But usually, when in these repetitive moves, what kicks in is certain laziness in execution, and that's the hardest thing, I think, to get this enormous discipline into the execution of these dynamics. The other dynamics that Beethoven is very keen on is these plateauing fortes. Sometimes what's happening, if you don't pay attention, you reach a climax, and if you don't really work on it, it sinks down. Beethoven doesn't allow that. Once you reach a forte, and it says sempre, and he writes the sempre forte, so it means always forte, leading into the next dynamic level, which is louder, like fortissimo. But this sempre forte means actually like go louder to get there. So you have to work on maintaining these dynamic levels without letting it drop. Then he has other passages where he does the exact opposite, where we have these terraces of dynamics and where the shades become very, very different, especially in piano, pianissimo, and sometimes even triple pianissimo, which is in the classical period maybe the softest composers write. Tchaikovsky sometimes writes 5 or 6 pieces even, and I think in the new edition of the Verdi Requiem score there are 8 pieces. It takes a lot of space if you're. But these shades of dynamics are also something that is, if you don't make them really clearly different, it's very hard for the listener to hear the difference. So sometimes you have shades, sometimes you have to reach plateaus, sometimes you have to bridge them. And Beethoven was very clear and specific about it.
Now, some of the works, let's say, for example, the Fifth Symphony, is incredibly well known. It's been recorded hundreds of times. Does that offer a different challenge to a conductor than, let's say, the Second Symphony, which people don't know? Do you approach something that well known differently?
Basically not. It is interesting with the symphony like number 5 that everybody assumes is so well known, but what's actually well known is the first 2 bars of it. And that's it usually, and then that well known starts being fading out. It starts fading out a little bit. I think a lot of people don't really know the slow movement so well, and with the scherzo, there's a lot of famous parts in the scherzo, and the finale is a glorious finale. But if you really ask people to sing it, I think it'll be less well known all of a sudden. And we think it's a symphony that has been performed so often. If you look at the programming, it's actually a piece that a lot of people avoid nowadays because of the challenges. I think with every piece that Beethoven wrote, you have to come with a very fresh approach, because Beethoven's statement is always a statement to our state of mind, where we are as people, as an audience, as those who make the music, those who listen. We are at a certain point of time, and what we say with his music has a different meaning now than it had 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And this doesn't mean performance practice, it's just the way we express the music and see it, what it means for us as people. This all Beethoven's music is deeply humanitarian in the way that it has a humanist ideal that he sees in front of him, and to reach this ideal, he uses the music to characterize this ideal. And of course, this ideal changes through the years quite dramatically.
Well, we're all anticipating all Beethoven 9 symphonies, January and February 2012. Thank you.
Thank you.